Hello and happy Sunday, Sonder family. It is so good to see you. You're here to set up week 41, if you can believe it, week 41. And we are so glad to welcome you today. I am Jennifer Ogilvy, and I'll be your facilitator for today's setup. And also on the call with me is the fabulous Maya, and she is going to be manning the chat. So if you have any questions as we're going along, be sure to drop them in the chat and she will do her best to answer them or point you in the right direction so you can get the answer you're looking for. While we're talking about the chat, make sure you have set your chat to everyone so that when you share, it goes out to everyone. And I know sometimes on phones, it'll default back to host and panelists. So you might have to keep checking, but we'll also try to remind you to do a quick check of that. So make sure you've grabbed all your supplies and your journal so that we're ready to dive into this week. If you are new here, if this is your very first time to join us in a social, an extra big welcome to you. And a welcome to our returning socialers, setup socialers. I want to give you a quick tip. I've got lots of things to share with you that you might find would work in your journal. But don't worry about like, oh, I missed it. Maybe grab your cell phone and just get ready to snap pictures of things that speak to you tonight because it is a lot of content and I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed. So as you know, we have a monthly theme and it helps kind of guide us as we lean into each month. We get to know ourselves better through different themes. And this month's theme is surrender. And Maya and I had the pleasure of working together yesterday, and she actually did a social on one of the some of the journal prompts in our journal, and we heard from folks that this theme is a little tricky, kind of a tough one to get into, but we also recognize that the ones that are a little tougher, that usually means we need it, right? We don't like to dig into the dirt, but sometimes that's what serves us best to really dig in. And I know that I've already done some introspective thinking as I've looked at my life through this theme. So, our time together, we are going to dig into the theme with an activity, and as you know, we call those mind maps. We build. Using our theme, we build on that every week. So we're going to do that. We're going to have our weekly setup and then we will close. So this month we are discovering surrender. And tonight we're going to talk about vulnerability. And that's kind of a little tender spot, right? So week one, we focused on how do we surrender feelings and mental states that are defining how we are doing life every day. And this week, we're going to lean into vulnerability. Now, Brene Brown is a researcher who has done a ton of work on vulnerability and shame. And this quote is a direct quote from her, and it kind of will help us define what vulnerability looks like in our lives. It is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity, all those beautiful things that we desire. It is the source of hope, empathy, accountability, and authenticity. If we want greater clarity in our purpose or deeper and more meaningful spiritual lives, vulnerability is the path. And Brene Brown did a ton of research on shame and being fearful of leaning into vulnerability, letting your guard down with folks. And she started to notice that the majority of people walking around, we're carrying shame and fear of being our true selves. But she began to notice in her research that there were these outliers. They did things a little differently. And she named those people the wholehearted. They were the ones who were living and loving with their whole hearts despite risks and uncertainty. And where she noticed most of us are walking around kind of living life half-heartedly, these wholehearted people, the difference was that they have the courage to bring their whole selves to the table. So it, you know, it's kind of a tricky thing. Some of it, you start questioning how do you live wholeheartedly? Because we tend to walk around trying to numb the hard stuff. But the bad part about that is when we numb the hard stuff, we are also numbing the good stuff. So being vulnerable is critical to being a wholehearted person. So I have pulled some data points from Brene Brown, and we are going to look at these. These are her guidepost to wholeheartedly living. And it's, what do we need to let go of? Surrender so that we can cultivate. And I'll go through this list. And what I'm going to ask you to do as we're looking at this is to not worry about the whole chart. I want you to just kind of pay attention to what is resonating with you. And for our week 2 activity, under vulnerability, maybe choose one or two of these things that are speaking to you, that if you can surrender and let go of, you're going to cultivate what? And yes, Maya, thank you. I forgot. I gave Maya the link to Brene Brown. She has a beautiful TED Talk on vulnerability. And Maya just put that in the chat if you want to go and watch that later. It's beautiful. So if we can look at these things, let go of what other people think, we're going to cultivate being authentic. If we can let go of perfectionism, we become self-compassionate. If we can let go of numbing and powerlessness, we're becoming a resilient spirit. If you let go of scarcity and fear, you will cultivate gratitude and joy. How about that need for certainty? Do you need to let that go so that you can cultivate intuition and trusting faith? Cultivating creativity by letting go of comparison. When you let go of exhaustion as a status symbol or productivity, and that's what defines your self-worth, you cultivate a spirit of playfulness and rest. Anxiety as a lifestyle, if you can get rid of that, you become calm and still. What about letting go of self-doubt and all the supposed tos so that you can cultivate the meaningful work in your life? And how about if you feel like you've always got to be cool and in control, if you can surrender that and fill your life with laughter, song, and dance? And I will share with you, I'm an early retiree, and I was telling Maya, watching the stock market is not a fun thing right now. And I have really been overwhelmed with scarcity and fear. And I'm cultivating that right now. And I really need to lean into surrendering that scarcity and fear mindset and cultivate gratitude and joy for all the things that I do have. So that's the one that I'm focusing on. I'd love to see what you're going to work on this evening for our week 2 activity, if you're comfortable. I'm going to play a couple of songs and give you a few minutes to work on this. thank you so much for dropping some of your feelings. You were vulnerable for opening up and sharing in the chat. One thing about the Sonder family is we know we are never alone and that we are journeying to be a better version of ourselves with each other. And it is so great to have that. Yes, Liz, wholehearted living, being a wholehearted person. So you may want to snap a pic of this slide if it's speaking to you. These are all those guideposts. And just for the sake of time, I wanted you to lean into just one or two since we have so much other stuff to get to tonight. But I think when we can look at each one of these things that we need to let go of, and then look at on the flip side, the cultivating, it can really help us with growing. And think of it as cultivating is about moving forward by putting your oars in the water and just rowing on, moving ahead. And then letting go is about resistance removal. You're pulling up that anchor so that your boat will go forward. Brene Brown says wholeheartedness is like a north star. You never get there, but you know when you're heading in the right way. So thank you for taking time tonight to work on our week 2 of surrender through how we become more vulnerable with our journeys. So if you may already have a cadence to your journal. You know exactly how you're going to set things up tonight, and that is great. You've carved out this appointment with yourself. But remember, the whole thing is about this is your journal and your journey. And a lot of these spaces can easily be changed up and repurposed to work just for you. So I have a whole list here on the slide of ways that you can use the spaces to meet your needs. These are great suggestions if you're a gardener. Maybe you use a tracker for gardening, planning your outfits or packing list. It's about making your weeks work for you. So hopefully I'll be able to show you some new ideas and, you may grab onto one, and we're going to also go lean into that old rule. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Do what works for you. So I'd like to kick it off, letting you know what these special days are this week. We've got some fun ones coming up. So maybe you'd like to add one of these days into your calendar and, celebrate I Love Lucy Day on the 15th. I see there's Lemon Bar Day. Boss's Day is coming up. Maya and I are kind of excited about the 13th because it's no bra day, but I also won't leave my house. So think about a fun way to lean into a couple of these days this week just to make things special. So let's dig into our weekly planner. We are on week 41, which is on page 40. And you are welcome to turn to that page. And this week, we're going to kick off by looking at that very top box. How do you want to feel this week? Drop that in the chat right now. Or do you have a busy week? Are you needing to be productive? Or was last week crazy and this week needs to be your week of rest? I see. Okay. Crystal says she needs to be motivated. What other feelings? Energized, productive. Yes, that's always, we love our, calendars. Available, content, family oriented, great, satisfied, centered. Thank you for sharing all of these. Peaceful, unstoppable. I love that. I've got a few words up here if you're struggling to find some, but there's some good stuff going down in the chat. So thank you for putting that there. We're going to embrace that feeling, and we are going to look at our 3 weekly goals so that by the end of the week, we are feeling the way we want to feel. So if you've come before, you've seen this information, I'm going to encourage you to maybe go look on page 9 at those intentions you set for yourself this month. How you doing? Do a check-in. Are those intentions still where you want them to be, or do you need to change those up and then reflect that in your goals for the week? Maybe you'll take the information we just did on being a little more vulnerable and use those as your goals, looking through the lens of surrender and particularly looking at being vulnerable. Maybe you're going to get rid of some things in your life. And so your goals are no goals so that you can lighten the load of your life. Look at your previous weeks and see if there's anything outstanding. Maybe something gets transferred over. And then you can always frame these goals around a single challenge. You could do, a fitness challenge or a cleaning, decluttering challenge, self care challenge, and have them all kind of thematic. There's lots of ways to repurpose this section, and you can see those. Maybe you want to just list 3 shows you want to watch, do some podcasts. Maybe you want to have 3 learnings this week. Put a little mini bingo board in your goals with several things to do. Again, it's about you making this journal work for you. Now, I have a couple of examples for you to look at, and I love the question. If we reflect, how will these goals support the way that you want to feel at the end of the week? And so make sure you're choosing them to reflect that feeling you shouted out that you want to do. All righty. So we are going to put on some music and I'll go back to this big list here so you can check that out. And let's go ahead and jump into our 3 major goals for the week. right. You guys have some great goals planned for the week. And I love a couple of you said things like, I'm going to pay attention to whatever, or I'm going to notice whatever, or I'm going to put my phone down. So there's that great balance of really leaning into paying attention to just, what's going on in our life. Sometimes we get so busy we forget to do that. So now let's look at the section that is our weekly to-dos. And I love the graphic that is on this slide. It came from one of our Sonder family members. And she said she just wrote this in the to-do box. What are the three most important tasks of each day in the coming week? So she's going to look at every day and figure that out for that particular day. And then she's asking herself, where can I schedule time for rejuvenation or refilling my energy? And what's the smallest possible step forward that she can take to see momentum and connect to the why you're doing what you're doing. And so I love that she used that space as somewhat of a challenge for her to-dos. Now, I found kind of a fun graphic that I don't think we've seen this before. There is an author and his name is John Emmerling. And he says he does two lists every week, and one is a to do list, and one is a to think list. And he says his to do lists are just kind of those rhythms and routines: walk the dog, do X, Y, Z, the actual to dos. But on the to think list, he says that list is a good list for dawdling, for kind of ruminating and dreaming and imagining and making space for creativity. And he says the to do list, those require actions, but the to thinks allows you to take time and dream. And so I just kind of wanted to throw that one on there. I kind of like that. Just give yourself some time to dawdle. I don't think we dawdle enough. Another way you can use this space is through the Eisenhower matrix. And at our setups, we generally show this one. It's a wonderful graphic for a very, very busy week. If you have a lot of things going on, it is a great technique that will help you prioritize all the many, many tasks that you have on your plate. And it also allows you a way to figure out what's not important and what's not urgent so that you can take that away and give yourself that grace. And I put up a graphic from one of you of what that kind of looks like in real life. When we're working on this, I'll go back and forth between these slides. Then, of course, there's the need, want, hope to do list, or the wish list. That's a great way to divide this up for the week. Do the things you need to do, the things you want to do, and then maybe that little bit of a dream. Again, it just kind of helps you when you can sort those things out. And then here's some graphics on how folks have divided their list up. So you can see there's one that says my to-dos for self, for my home, and for others. There's a morning to do and an evening to do, and there's a wants and needs. And then there's a bingo board. I love a bingo board, so that's a fun thing to put in this space. I also always like to throw in a reminder that maybe there are some things you're eliminating to create a to don't list. And maybe you're working on those 10 guideposts for wholehearted living. How are you going to be this week? And just make a to be list. Now, I like to share this. I have a big O to do list that moves from each monthly journal, and some of my weekly to dos get pulled from this list, but it's almost a little bit like a dawdle list. These things do not have a time frame, and so I encourage you to kind of have a master list of things that maybe you can put off, but you don't want to forget about them. So that's just kind of a little tip for me, and what I have found works good in my life. So I'm going to play a song while you work on your list for the week, and then I'll check back in with you. And while this song is playing, I will scroll through to the other slides so that you can take another look at them if one of those really spoke to you. Okay, all my singers out there, thank you for singing along. That's such a good surrender song. I had to put it in there. I just love that one. So I hope you were able to belt out the song at the top of your lungs. That's good for you. Singing is good for you. So let's move on to that habit and activity tracker for the week. And again, I'm going to ask you, are you checking on those October intentions that you set? Is there something from those intentions that need to go into this space so that you are living and living that those intentions you set, living them fruitfully, and then when you reflect back, you're like, yeah, I did it. I was intentional with those intentions. So check your monthly habit tracker. So these weekly habit trackers, can be changed up to work for whatever kind of week you are going to be having. You know yourself better than anybody. So if things are crazy, you might only track a couple, three things. So you can see there's an example there on the top left above. They're going to track three things this week. You can assign a number of times you want to meet these habits and activities, or you can just mark them off. You don't have to set a goal. The whole idea behind these trackers is success and being proud of the work you're doing. So set yourself up for success. And I just wanted to point out the one I found this, I saw this in Sonder Club this week, and I was like, that is amazing. If you look on the bottom right there, that whole space is marked as grace. This Sonder family member had a different kind of week going on and was going to be with family and really wanted to just lean into that time that she was going to have with her family this week. And so she's giving herself grace with that space and just saying, you know what, this week I'm not going to worry about that. And I think it's a great reminder to us all. We don't have to do all the things. So I had to throw that one in there for you. So if you're kind of trying to figure out maybe some habits to add into your routine and you really not sure which way to go, these are a lot of the habits that we have seen from our Sonder family over months, and I've kind of thrown those together, but also drop into your chat if you're going to be filling in this space, how you're going to use it, and I'll let you get to that and check back in just a second. All right. One of my favorite things about doing the setup is seeing how beautifully this community supports one another, and watching that chat flow. And I just have to do a shout out to Shelby. She's got some great things going on celebrating, and she says it's because she has just discovered more about herself and taking risks through Silk and Sonder. So yay for that. You guys are awesome. Yes, I saw things about make sure you're putting fun stuff on these. It's habits and activities. So read every day, do something that makes you happy, and set yourself up for success, or slap a big old sticker on it. And don't worry about that accountability if your week is nuts. You've already got plenty on your plate. Again, it's about making this journal work in your life and what's going to help you be the best version of you. So good job, everybody. It's gonna be a great week. So we've talked about page 40. So let's look over on the next page, which is page 41. And we're going to talk right now about the meal plan section and the mind body health plan section. And both of those are great spaces for repurposing. So if you don't use the meal planner as a meal planner, no problem. We've got lots of ideas for you to look at. So I've collected several of these. These are from you guys. Thank you. When you share in Sonder Club, we can get inspiration from one another. This space has been used in a number of different ways, as you can see on this slide. We have going from left to right. Someone is going to use this to lean into the 7 different types of rest every day. The next one is writing down the affirmations for the week, just kind of checking in with Sonder Club, looking at that, writing it down in that space. The middle one is a chore list. The next one is an appointment list. And the final one on this slide is either you can use it as a wardrobe tracker or a packing list. Then this next one, the first two that you see there, they're sort of using this space as a way to track kind of symptoms or health. One is a glucose monitor, and one is looking at hours fasting. They're doing the intermittent fasting. So you can kind of reframe this to be, what you need for your health. Maybe your doctor is wanting you to use it as a symptom tracker, and you could put those kinds of things down. The next one is all the things that are happening in school that week. The fourth one over is a self care plan. And every day there are items planned that this Sonder family member wants to really lean into. Things like breathe, focus, pray. Just very simple self care. The next to the last one is the GLAD, an acronym, and it is for grateful, learned, achieved, and delighted. What are the things that helped all of those feelings happen? And so they're using that space for that. And then finally, oh yay, thank you, Janine. She says that was hers. And then the one all the way over on the right, it's a list of favorites of the week. So favorite song, favorite moment, favorite quote or thought for the day, a highlight, favorite romantic moment, and a favorite accomplishment. So kind of just reflecting, using it as a reflection piece. Now, I'll come back to these slides when we're working on these sections. Let's take a look at the mind body health plan. And I've pulled some examples for you to look at. I kind of just I saw the one that's on the upper left and thought that's so great. It's just little stickers about how they're going to move their body that week. And so that's kind of fun. Probably do a little bingo board and mark that off. The one below it is just a great sticker, a quote that's going to get this person through the week. Never forget how wildly capable you are. The When we go over to the middle column, there's just a things to do every single day. You can see I think Sunday it's the OTF. I think that's only the family. And so I love that. And again, the one below it is also a day by day way to lean into the body mind health plan for the week. Then the left column is journal prompts for every single day of the week. And I'm sure that these answers go somewhere else in the journal, but that's the space that's going to hold the prompt for this person. And then we've also got the list of, journaling and bubble baths and that kind of thing. So lots of ways to reuse this space. We've got these slides. There's different focuses on the list to the left. So self-care, cleaning, digital detox, et cetera, et cetera. Weekly intentions. And again, I'll come back to these because I know it's a lot of stuff to look at. I love when we have like the motivation Monday and the transformation Tuesday. Those alliteration days are kind of fun to lean into. We always talk about the 7 types of rest. There's a great slide that will explain that a little further. And there's an example from our Sonder family there on the right of how they're going to um, really take action for each one of those types of rest. And then this is also just a great slide on some types of self care and how to practice them, and also a self care plan. And I've shared this one a couple of times. Asking yourself, what do I feel right now? And what is that telling me I need? And I love the mindfulness behind that. So, just a ton of stuff. I'm going to put on music and I'll go back and forth through these slides. So, if you saw something that you liked, grab that and then drop in the chat how you're going to use this space this week. righty. Thank you for sharing how you're using this space this week. And I said, if you are comfortable with sharing your pages, we would love to see your setup or a particular section. If you find like I'm going to do this week, and feel free to post that. We can encourage you, and then check back in. And you know what? This worked great, and I'm going to do it every week. Or, I think I'm going to try something else. Let us know how those kinds of things are working for you and share in the Sonder Club. We love to see your pages. So now we're going to tackle that shopping list. And I love the shopping list space. It's very versatile, that little grid. And there's several fun ways you can repurpose this. I always do some kind of a little bingo board there just because it's fun. I get I get the endorphins from rubbing, checking it off, blacking it out, doing the little boxes. Nona Natalie says she's going to use a quote, and then it'll help her, to tie into that feeling for the week. And so there's a really lots of great ways to use this. As you can see, I've got a big list there. There's an example of how someone's turned this into their chore list, or they're tracking bills to pay. A packing list if you're going to be traveling. It's a great little spot for that. Someone's doing a self-care plan. You can see that one there on the bottom left. And I love that. It's got self-care and restore my soul. And then I posted the top bingo board was from my birthday back in July. And I just made kind of a fun week. And I will encourage you, if you have something that you are celebrating, an anniversary, a birthday, a child's birthday, make a fun little bingo board because it just makes that week a lot of fun. And I see dropping in the chat a lot of great ideas. Melanie just said she does that. Glad, an acronym there. There's a whole bunch of other ideas there on the side for this. And we can kind of take a look at those. Let's see. And then also that very bottom box underneath, loving. What are you loving this week? Right now, at this very moment, is it a book, a movie, a show? Be sure to take time to fill that out. That little box is a great space to use when you go back and reflect on what October looks like when you're sitting with your November. So let's put on some music while you work on this space, the shopping list space. If you're using it for something other than a shopping list, let us know in the chat. Okay, thank you for sharing. You guys had some great ideas. So Nona Natalie says she's going to do that quote, and then I saw several bingo boards. Somebody's using it as a wins list. I think that was Lauren, and Nathania says she uses it blank and then does it uses it for aha moments. So we can have a ta-da moment in our to-do list and an aha moment as we um, travel through the week. Someone else is using it as a place to hold accountability to self for checking in on family members. The GLADN acronym. So somebody's using it for, let's see, that was Angela. She's going to use that space as a self love letter every week. So you guys came up with some fabulous repurposing ideas. Maya's going to drop a quote in there. And Ambry says, I'm boring. I just use a sticker. Mm-mm. This is your journal. If it makes you happy, that's what you need to do. That's what we, we keep talking about. So let's see. You guys, thank you for sharing all of those wonderful, wonderful ideas. A prayer section, a wins list, your wins for the day, chore bingo. That just makes the chores completely fun, right, Gloria? Take just chores to a whole nother level. So I do have a couple of slides of our weekly spreads. So you can just see how people like to divide those long columns up into every day, just some ideas for how that's going to work and how that will look. You can see lots of great, stickers and check boxes the one on the left, spaces for affirmation, the six most, those most important things for the each day, pray, reflect, exercise. So the to-dos, what that looks like. I just like to look at other people's pages and get inspired of how to set that weekly up. Lots of people say, what do you use that one thing box for up at the very top of each day? And mine is set up here on the bottom left, and I always write my little daily affirmation there. So that's kind of a neat spot to put that in. You can work in the time of day. You see the one in the middle, they've assigned those grids hours. So again, just some ideas for how to set up your weekly, that weekly spread. And oh, good. Erica says she uses the one thing for her win of the day. We always need to seek those wins. And it could be as simple as I remembered to brush my teeth. There are often many days I go, oh, I forgot. So anyway, I hope that looking at those are helpful to you. And believe it or not, friends, we are at the end of our time. So we would love to see you share your weekly planner. Got a couple of examples there on our slide deck from our Instagram account where people shared and it got reshared. And then here are our QR codes. So the very top one there in the middle is the QR code for the survey. And I know if you go to a lot of Sonder socials, you may not always fill the survey out, but we really do love to get the feedback. We also want to hear what times work for you. What other ideas would you like to see in your journal? So that's where that feedback gets bubbled up to the right people in headquarters as they continue to develop this journal to be the best tool for your self-care. Um, we are still doing the you get $10, your friend gets $10 with that referral code there on the bottom left. And if you're not already a member of Sonder Club, you can hold your phone up to that QR code in the bottom middle and it will take you to your app store so you can join us in Sonder Club. And finally, the all important YouTube link for our recordings of all of the socials that are offered is there on the bottom right. You can also go to Eventbrite and look for future events for the rest of the month. And believe it or not, we're already working on November, and there's some fun things coming up. So, Sonder fam, thank you so much. Oh, that's a great question. Can you make the feedback shorter? Put that in the feedback so that the people who do that can develop that. So, you guys, here's the songs that we heard tonight. If there's any other slides you want to see, let me know in the chat and I'll go back. And otherwise, I'm going to leave you with a fun song to kick off a week. Y'all make it a good one, Sonder fam. I'll see you later. Maya enjoyed spending this time with you.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you. These days are ours. Happy days. These days are ours. Share them with me. Goodbye, gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. Feel so right. It can't be wrong, rocking and rolling all week long.